earlier in the presentation, I rearranged my document manager to include a number of properties related to file completion. This is going to make it much easier for me to set document management properties for things like include an index, cleanup, lockdown off to the right-hand side here, roll forward, and roll forward as placeholder. Because the columns are visible in the document manager, I don't have to go into each document's properties to manage these items. Now, all of these items are available in our document properties, and here you see the lockdown, retain on cleanup, include an index, roll forward, and roll forward as placeholder options just from my one Word document that I've got here. The roll forward as placeholder option is not available for a folder or for an automatic document, but it is available for all other document types. Now, what do all these properties mean to the document? Well, in include an index, if the checkbox is checked, that means that this document will appear in the automatic document that is titled Working Paper Index. If it is cleared, it would not appear in that document. Beside that, retain on cleanup, with the item selected, when engagement cleanup is run, that item will stay in the file. If it's unselected, that item will be deleted from the file when cleanup is run. For year-end close, if under the calendar icon, the roll forward option is selected, that item will be copied into next year's file. However, for case view and external documents, we have an extra option. With that extra option, roll forward as placeholder cleared, it will create an identical copy of the file in next year's working paper file. However, if I check the checkbox, what will happen is this item will become a placeholder in next year's file, and it would expect us to drag and drop a new document onto the placeholder next year. That might be something to consider when we're dealing with audit evidence, and you've got specific evidence in this year's file that you're dragging and dropping into your client file, and you know next year you're going to have an updated document, so you want the line item, but you don't necessarily want a copy of this year's document in next year's file. So we would, in that case, simply check the checkbox. That becomes a placeholder in next year's file, and we drag and drop the new content on it in the exact same fashion that I dragged and dropped the board meeting minutes into document 4F placeholder. Now, the last column that I chose to show is the lockdown column, and with the checkbox checked, that document will be locked down in this file when we run the engagement lockdown feature. If it's deselected, the document would be not locked down. Now, typically, we remove the lockdown selections for our income tax returns folder. Taxes and tax documents are not required to be locked down. However, attest engagement documents are required to be locked down. There's a couple of things to keep in mind in that situation. In my folder properties, if I select the folder, I can either right-click on it or I can go to Document and choose Properties. We will see that there is an option that an explanation is not required when adding documents after lockdown, and I would do that for my tax return folders and my tax work folders in the working paper file. Also, I have the option to not lock that folder down. Now, the documents currently in it are slated for lockdown. I don't want them to be locked down. Either I'm going to clear this checkbox, and that will apply to the current documents that are in the folder. However, any new documents I add will have to verify that the lockdown checkmark is removed for those items. And then we would go ahead and complete our lockdown through engagement lockdown. On top of that, I can even use the built-in filters to focus on those documents that have specific properties. For example, if I would like to see documents that are not marked for lockdown, on the filter tool, I can select a drop-down and choose not marked for lockdown. That will show me then only those documents that have the appropriate flag selected or deselected depending on the filter that I've selected. We can always turn that back to none. And of course, when we exit the working paper file and re-enter it, it will always revert it back to none. Now, the filter manager also allows us to create our own custom filters. I've taken the liberty of creating a filter called Documents with Issues. And if we have a look at that over here, I can edit it. And it's basically just saying any document that has an issue count of greater than 0 will appear based on that filter. And when I apply the filter, Documents with Issues, it will show me only those documents in my file that have issues associated with them. And that's very easy to set up and create whatever filter that you need to get that going in your document manager. Now, there are other attributes that are available to us in the document manager, and a simple right click and show will allow us to have a quick peek at some of the other ones. I've got different issue settings. File name. Now, the file name is not necessarily the name that we see in the document manager. So I'm going to go ahead and show the file name and turn off my filter. Here we see that my financial statement document name in the document manager is actually Caseware Zone DM0802, and if I extend this a little bit further, 15FS. So it's taking, for a case view document, the name of the file that I've created. Down here we see in the bottom corner, Caseware Zone DM 8/20/2015, and then in the document properties we're using the identifier plus the CVW. So we don't have to see exact names that are used in Windows Explorer. We can put in our own names, and of course if that's not what you want, F2 is a quick way to rename these, and you can simply type over whatever you want, cursor down to continue renaming other items, press enter when you're finished, and it will accept those items. External documents, any external documents, Word, Excel, PDF, etc., have the file name in Windows and the ability to name it differently for the document manager. Now I'm going to go one step further here with my PDFs because we also have the ability to show another column, and that's called Viewer. Right now these two PDFs are set to the external viewer, so if I were to double click and open one of them, it actually opens up in Adobe Reader for me. However, in the document properties, we have the ability to set what type of viewer we want, and I could have chosen an internal image viewer, which would then allow me to open it right inside Working Papers. And the advantage there is the ability to add annotations anywhere on that document, and those annotations appear on the Home tab in the new Ribbons toolbars. Now, of course, when we're working with the document manager, we're likely working with other documents. You may want to take the document manager and move it to a separate screen. It's simply a matter of grabbing the document manager tab and dragging it out of the Working Papers window. You can also right-click on that tab, choose Desktop Window, and that will take it outside of the Working Papers window. Or we can also choose Docking View so that we have it off to the side, and when I open up another document in my document manager that is Working Papers specific, it will open up inside of Caseware Working Papers for us. To turn off the docking view, I can either right-click and remove the docking view from the right-click tab, or under the View menu, we can see the docking view icon, and I can deselect that, and it will go back to the full screen. Now that's a lot to keep in mind when we're looking at the document manager. It's got a lot of flexibility, and of course you can use it the way you need to use it, lay it out how you want to lay it out. I'm going to go ahead and right-click and hide my viewer and right-click and hide my file name, and I want to point out that I have the uncleared issues column to the right of my document name. The reason I do that is because when I have an issue that I need to deal with, I can open it up, resolve it, and then I can mark it as completed, 100%. When I do that, it removes it from my outstanding issues column and it moves it over to my uncleared issues column. And as a reviewer, when I see a column, an issue in that column, I can then go in and review that issue to ensure that it's been properly completed. And I can either clear it or delete it depending on what your workflow is. And it will remove it from that column, showing me that there's no issue with the document that needs to be dealt with at this time.